What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking everything FaZe, the good, the bad, the truth, how I feel about her. It's going to be a good one. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a coffee, and enjoy the video.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing
Before we get into the video, I want to point out that there's no such thing as a perfect champion. Every champion is going to have their positives and negatives, advantages and disadvantages, and that's kind of just how it is. This review is just my opinion. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just how I feel. Now, if you agree or disagree with how I feel, go ahead and throw that into the comment section so that we can create a discussion that pushes this character forward and possibly affect its development in the future. Now, what better way to start a video than with an anime reference?
All right, it's the Time Wizard!
Thanks, Time Wizard, for bringing us back into the past where we can see two core concepts of FaZe's character design. Now, if you go into Paragon's wiki, you can see that there's a bunch of traits listed, but there's two that stand out and are the core of what made her a great champion, and that is durability and elusiveness. Now, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail about these things, but you'll start seeing the underlying theme of my gripes and how they're related to them. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to point number one, and that is having 0 health regen in her kit. Now, health regen was directly related to her durability and is what allowed her to have a durability score of 8. This is what essentially affected her survivability. So every time she was in any kind of skirmish or any kind of situation where an enemy attacker happened to be there, she wasn't instantly melted, right? She would literally spam her abilities, throw her health regen through the roof, and unless you had enough damage to delete her, she was going to outlast it and then start applying her utility to the situation, and that is what we grew to love as Paragon players. And that is the reason why having 0 health regen, meaning having 0 durability, is my #1 gripe about the champion and be the first thing that I would fix in order to get her to where she needs to be. Now, point number 2 on why FaZe feels like absolute trash. And it has 100% to do with her lack of elusiveness. Now, her elusiveness is directly tied to her utility. And the two pieces of her utility are going to be her blind and her root. So her blind back in Paragon had a duration of 2 seconds. And basically you were blind, you couldn't see anything, and it allowed her to reposition herself and not just soak up so much damage without having a chance to defend herself. The second part of her utility was her root, or her lance. So basically she was able to slow you, and if she put enough stacks of slow on you, she would be able to root you for 2.5 seconds. So when you pair those two together, it basically gave her a window of 4.5 seconds where she could allow her health regen to kick in and allow for her partner in crime to start dealing damage. And unless you really got her out of there right then and there, and caught her when her abilities were on cooldown, you would find out that she became very elusive and she was able to survive most situations. Which that brings me to point number 3, and that is essentially her lack of damage. Now, you could literally type in FaZe damage build back in the day, and you could literally find hundreds of builds that were titled Carry FaZe. And that was for good reason. It was because literally her kit had enough damage in it to where she could run as a carry or a mid laner. Was it the meta? No, but she still had enough damage to where she didn't feel like a spectator. If you caught her out in the open and the person was 25% health, you could guarantee that that FaZe was going to try to kill you. But in the current meta, with basically her survivability being 0, her mobility being 0, and her damage being 0, she's basically not all that scary, and she's kind of a husk of herself, and is the third reason why I think that she feels very, very bad. And I can note that Predecessor has already thrown out a hot fix that has increased her damage. It's still not at the levels of it used to be, but it's something that they're hoping directly affects her playability and survivability. But I have a sneaky suspicion that because she's not able to survive long enough to apply her utility that gives her that elusiveness, that damage kind of has to be off the charts in order to get people to second guess whether or not to go after her. And this brings me to my final and last point on why FaZe is absolutely trash, and that is because of her win rate. Now, her win rate and her play rate are kind of relative, and so I'm going to go ahead and throw up that on the board. Her play rate is 31% and her win rate is 41%, and that is absolutely garbage and 100% related to the fact that she's no longer durable enough to survive any kind of altercation. She has 0 damage, so nobody's afraid of her, and she literally has 0 elusiveness. And as a support, utility is king, and she has literally half as effective utility. Like literally the durations are abysmal. So what does that turn into? It turns into a champion that dies a lot, and because you're dying a lot, you're losing a lot, and if you're losing a lot, nobody wants to play her. And that's probably the biggest reason why she feels like absolute garbage. Now, with that being said, final thoughts. What can we do to make her back to her former glory? Well, it's 100% related to put her back the way she was. Add health regen back into her kit. Add more duration to both of her utility abilities. Like, those are common sense things. But let's say if that's too much for the Predecessor team to do, then you kind of got to go in a different direction. You got to kind of ramp up her damage so she turns into more of a Bellica Faye type, where people are more apprehensive to attack her because they know she has the damage to get them out of there. And then that will give her a place where she can actually be involved in the community rather than be a spectator. Now, if you agree with what I have to say, go ahead and hit that like button. If you didn't, throw your reason for not agreeing with me down into the comment section. I would love to create some type of conversation with you in order to promote some type of change, because we know something has to change. With that being said, that's all I got. You guys be blessed, be safe, and until the next video, I'll catch you later. Peace.